The road wound along the edge of the world, cliffs on one side, an endless sprawl of gray-blue ocean on the other. I remember thinking how fragile it all looked. The car, the cliffs, even us. He was driving, humming softly to a song on the radio that neither of us knew the words to. His hand rested casually on the steering wheel, the gold of his new wedding ring glinting every time the sunlight broke through the clouds. I watched it too long until he noticed. "You're quiet," he said. "Cold feet already?" I smiled. "Just tired, it wasn't a lie." "Not exactly," he laughed. A practiced, effortless sound that made strangers adore him. I used to love that laugh. Now, in the small echo of the car, it felt staged, like a line rehearsed too many times. The road narrowed, lined with wind-torn pines that bent toward the sea. Somewhere in the distance I saw gulls circling low, their cries sharp enough to pierce through the hum of the tires. "We're almost there," he said. "A whole week." Just us, I echoed. The words should have felt romantic. Instead, they landed heavy. I traced a finger across the fogged window, drawing nothing in particular, just movement to fill the silence. The ocean flashed between gaps in the trees, vast and cold. It reminded me of the way he looked at me sometimes. Too calm, too deep to read. He reached over and placed his hand on mine. His skin was warm, steady. Mine wasn't. "You trust me, don't you?" he asked, eyes still on the road. "Of course," I said. The lie slid out easily. For a moment I thought I saw something flicker across his reflection in the glass. A smirk. A shadow, something quick and unreadable. The villa appeared in the distance, small against the cliffs. Beautiful. Isolated. As the car turned down the narrow path toward it, I told myself this was a new beginning. But deep down I already knew. It was the end beginning again. The road narrowed until it was nothing but gravel and wind. When we reached the end, the house appeared. A pale structure resting just above the sand, its windows catching the light like half-closed eyes. It was beautiful in the kind of way that makes you nervous to breathe too loudly. Weathered wood, white curtains trembling in the ocean air, and the soft roar of waves so near it felt like the sea might swallow us whole. He parked and smiled, proud, expectant. "Not bad, right?" "It's perfect," I said and meant it for a second. But the moment we stepped inside, I felt something off. The air smelled faintly of salt and lavender. Lived in, not new. Dust clung to the corners of the furniture, yet the bed was freshly made. It felt less like a rental and more like a pause in someone else's life. "Seems old," I murmured, running my fingers along the banister. "Rustic charm," he said. "I found it online, hidden gem. We'll have the beach all to ourselves." There was a flicker in his tone, something proud but guarded. He moved through the rooms easily, too easily, like someone who already knew where everything was. In the living room, I noticed a picture frame on a low shelf. Ornate, silver, a little tarnished. The photo inside was gone, but the initials carved at the bottom caught my eye. A +L, who's A and L? I asked. He glanced over barely. "No idea, probably old owners. Don't start ghost hunting yet." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. When he went outside to bring the luggage, I stayed behind, staring at the frame. The carving looked recent, not weathered. Someone had touched it not long ago. From the window, I watched him walk toward the car. He paused, hands on his hips, facing the sea for a long time, like someone remembering. I turned away before he came back. The walls creaked as though sighing, and the sea's voice deepened against the shore. Later, I would realize it wasn't the house that felt familiar. It was the silence between us, practiced, inherited, like something we'd both lived before. And the initials. They would matter more than I ever wanted them to. The house creaked through the night, whispering like it remembered us. Or maybe it remembered someone else. By morning, the sunlight slipped through the slats, sharp and golden. I made coffee in silence while he unpacked, humming, careless, pretending we were ordinary. The kettle's whistle was too loud in the emptiness. As I reached into the kitchen drawer for a spoon, I found something strange. A small bottle of perfume. Not mine. The glass was cracked, but the scent still clung. Jasmine, sweet and heavy like a ghost that refused to leave. I turned it in my hands, the label worn off. When he came in, I asked quietly, "Did you bring this?" He looked up from his phone, blinked. "No, Probably from whoever stayed before us. Right. I placed it back, though my fingers smelled like another woman's skin. Later, while he napped on the couch, I started tidying. That's when I saw it. A corner of paper wedged beneath the cushion. I pulled it out. A photograph torn down the middle. Only half a face remained. A woman smiling, her shoulder bare, the sea behind her. The handwriting on the back read, "Our secret shore." I froze. When he stirred awake, I hid the photo under my book. That evening, while folding towels, I found a lipstick stain, deep red, pressed against the fabric like a kiss that refused to fade. "Looks like someone had fun before us," I said lightly. Holding it up, he laughed, but it was the wrong kind of laugh, too quick, too loud, the kind that hides something. "Guess the last guest left more than a mess." I smiled back, but my stomach twisted. His phone buzzed again, face down on the counter. He ignored it. Outside, the ocean thundered against the rocks, wild and alive. Inside, everything smelled like salt, coffee, and something false. That night, lying beside him, I couldn't sleep. Every time he exhaled, I thought of that perfume. Jasmine and lies clinging to my skin. The sea whispered through the open window, its rhythm steady and knowing, and I began to wonder maybe the house wasn't haunted by strangers. Maybe it was haunted by the truth. By evening, the house smelled of garlic and ocean wind. I cooked because silence needed something to fill it. He opened a bottle of wine, the good kind he'd brought for celebration. The glasses clinked, and for a moment, we looked like every couple on their honeymoon. Candlelight soft on our faces, the sound of waves replacing conversation. Then I said it, that perfume, the one from the drawer. It's still bothering me. He froze, wine mid-pour. "You're still on that?" You just what, Anna?" His voice softened, almost tender. "You're imagining things again. You do this. You find ghosts where there aren't any." The word again burned. I hadn't realized how many times he'd used it before, as a way to make my memory feel like a crime. "I smelled it on the sheets," I whispered. He laughed then, leaning back in his chair. "Maybe you're jealous of the air now? Should I apologize to the wind for touching you first?" I wanted to leave the table, but my legs felt locked. That's how it always happened. The swing of him. Gentle, then cruel, then calm again. Like the tide pretending to love the shore before pulling it under. He reached across the table, fingers grazing mine. "You know I love you," he said. "You overthink things, that's all." His eyes were warm, but there was something rehearsed in his tone. The same tone he used when convincing me to move in with him. To marry him so quickly, to forget what my instincts screamed. I smiled because that's what he expected. Because arguing felt dangerous. He refilled my glass until the wine blurred the edges of everything. The flickering candles, his shifting smile, the sound of the sea. When I stood to clear the dishes, I caught my reflection in the window. 2 figures at the table, but behind us, the dark glass made it look like there was someone else watching. For a second, I almost turned to look. But he said softly, "Sit down. You don't have to clean. Stay with me." His hand rested on mine again. Warm, possessive, final. The waves outside crashed louder as if they knew what was coming. After dinner, he said he needed air. The candles still burned on the table, the wax dripping in slow, deliberate lines, like time melting. I watched him step out into the night, phone in hand, the glow of the screen painting his face pale blue. Through the window, I could see him pacing near the edge of the deck. The wind carried his voice in pieces. "No, she doesn't know, not yet." My heart stuttered. I muted the TV, the world shrinking to the sound of his voice and the crash of the sea beyond him. He turned away, speaking faster now, his hand rubbing the back of his neck. The gesture he always used when lying. I held my phone low, thumb trembling as I opened the recorder. The soft red circle glowed on my screen. I didn't even know why I was recording. Maybe I wanted proof. Maybe I wanted to hear it again later, in case I convinced myself it wasn't real. "I told you I'd handle it. Just stop calling me," he said sharply, and then quieter. "Yes, I love you too, but this isn't the time." I felt the room tilt. The ocean outside seemed to roar, louder than before, as if it knew I was finally listening. When he came back inside, he was smiling again, too smoothly. "Work," he said, tossing his phone onto the counter. Client emergency. At this hour? He shrugged. Not everyone's on honeymoon time. I nodded, pretending to believe him, though my pulse still echoed his words. She doesn't know, not yet. He kissed my forehead, lingering. You're quiet, he said softly. Just tired. He smiled again, but there was distance in it, the kind that feels planned. Later, when he slept, I replayed the recording with my ear pressed to the phone. His voice was faint but unmistakable, and behind his words, I swore I heard a woman's laughter, light, cruel, and carried by the wind. I turned off the phone, staring into the darkness, my breath shallow. Somewhere outside, the waves hit the rocks again, and I finally understood. The house wasn't empty. It never had been. The morning light was pale, colorless, as if the world itself had gone cold overnight. He was in the shower, humming off-key, steam curling under the door. The sound of water masked everything, even the quick beat of my heart. His suitcase sat open by the bed, a careless sprawl of shirts and folded jeans. I told myself I was only checking, not snooping, just searching for truth that might hurt less in daylight. The first thing I found was nothing. Clothes, receipts, the scent of salt and aftershave. But then, tucked beneath a rolled sweater, something glinted, silver, thin, delicate. A bracelet. Women's? The clasp was broken, and a single charm dangled from it, a small seashell painted gold. I traced its curve with my finger, the metal warm from the sun through the window. I didn't recognize it, but it felt familiar somehow, like a memory I'd borrowed from someone else. Then came the envelope. Yellowed at the edges, sealed but not carefully. I opened it, photographs, dozens of them. My husband, younger but not by much, standing where we stood yesterday. The same rocks, the same pale horizon. In one, he held a woman close, her hair whipping across her face. She was laughing. He looked at her the way he used to look at me, before the corrections, before the soft control. On the back of one photo, in looping handwriting, "Our forever shore." My throat closed. I flipped through them faster. Picnic blankets, wine bottles, sunburned smiles. In the last one, they stood in front of the same villa, the same door where our bags now rested. My stomach turned. He'd brought me here. Not because it was special. Because it was hers. The water stopped. The pipes groaned. I shoved the photos back, pushed the bracelet deep under his clothes, and zipped the bag halfway. Just as the door creaked open, he stepped out, towel around his waist, smiling that morning smile that had once made me feel safe. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled back, my voice steady. Perfect. But inside, something irreversible had shifted. The tide of knowing had come in, and there was no going back. The moon hung low, silver and swollen, painting the shore in half-light. The ocean was restless, waves curling and collapsing like something alive. I followed the path down from the villa barefoot, the sand cold, wet between my toes. He was already there. Standing near the water, hands in his pockets, staring out where the sea met the dark. He didn't turn when I said his name. "Beautiful night," he murmured. His voice carried oddly in the wind. I walked closer. "You've been here before." He glanced at me then, a flicker of surprise before it smoothed into something unreadable. "We came yesterday, remember?" "No," I said softly. "Not with me. With her." His eyes hardened, the easy smile vanishing. "What are you talking about?" "The photos," I whispered. "The bracelet. The perfume. You brought her here." Years ago, for a moment, silence. Only the waves spoke, crashing, retreating, crashing again. Then he laughed, low and humorless. "You went through my things. You lied to me." He stepped forward, close enough that I could see the faint sheen of sweat at his temple. "You shouldn't have looked." His tone wasn't angry, not yet. It was warning. "Who was she?" I asked. "Tell me the truth, just once." He tilted his head, moonlight cutting across his face. "You're imagining things again," that phrase again. "The one that stripped the ground from beneath me." "I heard you last night," I said. "The phone call." "She doesn't know, not yet." His jaw tightened. "You recorded me?" The waves roared louder, like the sea itself was trying to drown our voices. "You brought me here," I said, my voice shaking. "To her place." He took another step closer, close enough for the salt in his breath to mix with mine. You need to stop digging into things that don't concern you. I laughed, bitter. My husband's ghost lover doesn't concern me? He didn't answer. His eyes were dark, unreadable, like the ocean behind him, endless and dangerous. A wave crashed hard, spraying us both. I blinked and he was still there, unmoving. Then he whispered almost tenderly, "You shouldn't have looked." The wind carried his words away, but their weight stayed, and for the first time, I felt afraid. The wind howled louder, as if the ocean itself had turned against us. The moonlight fractured over the water, flashing in broken silver lines. "Anna, stop," he said, voice strained now. "You're not thinking straight." "I'm not." I stepped closer, waves licking my ankles, cold and sharp. "You lied. You made me believe this place was ours." His jaw tightened. "It is ours. Then why is her bracelet here?" "Why are her photos?" "Because she's gone," he shouted, and the words tore out of him like something that had been buried too long. Gone. The sea crashed harder. As though it heard, he grabbed my arm, not roughly, but firmly, the way someone steadies a fragile object. "You don't understand. It wasn't like that." She slipped. I froze. "She what?" He blinked, realizing too late what he'd said. "She fell," he corrected, voice shaking. "It was an accident." I pulled away. "Just like this one?" He reached for me again, desperation replacing control. His hand caught my wrist. I struggled, the wet sand shifting beneath us. My foot slipped. He tried to steady me, or hold me. I couldn't tell anymore. "Let go." I screamed, and something inside me snapped. We collided, bodies, breath, salt, fear. A flash of his face, the panic in his eyes, then the world spun. There was no sound, only water and the dark rush of air, then an impact. The sand hit my shoulder, cold and unforgiving. I gasped, tasting salt and blood. The waves pulled and released me like a cruel rhythm. When I opened my eyes, he was gone. The shore stretched empty, except for footprints. His, leading toward the water, fading at the edge where the tide had begun to rise. I called his name once. Then again, nothing but the echo of wind. The ocean shimmered under the breaking dawn. Calm, deceptive. I stood there for what felt like hours, hair dripping, skin shaking, trying to remember how it happened. If it was him who slipped, or me who pushed, or the sea that decided for us both. All I knew was that someone had fallen, and the tide was already erasing it. By the time the sun climbed over the horizon, the world had already learned to look normal again. The waves lapped gently against the shore, erasing everything that mattered. I walked back to the villa barefoot, my clothes clinging, my mind a fog of salt and silence. His phone still sat on the counter where he'd tossed it. I stared at it for a long time before dialing the number I never thought I'd have to use. "Coastal Police Department," a woman's voice said. "My husband," I began, my tone steady, rehearsed without meaning to. "He went for a walk this morning. He never came back." The words came easily, almost too easily. I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I sounded like someone telling a story that wasn't quite hers. Within hours, the villa was filled with strangers. Officers taking notes, cameras flashing, questions looping endlessly. I answered them all. Where was he last seen? What was he wearing? "Did we argue?" "No," I said. Everything was perfect. They believed me. Or maybe they wanted to. Outside, locals had gathered near the dunes. Fishermen, tourists, faces blurred by pity and curiosity. I heard their whispers carried by the wind. The honeymoon couple. The one who came back alone. By evening, search boats dragged the waters, and I stood on the shore pretending to hope. Every time a wave broke, I imagined him rising with it. Hair slicked back, eyes open, mouth forming my name. That night, the villa felt smaller. The air heavier. His clothes still hung in the wardrobe, damp with sea air. His scent clinging to the pillow beside me. I turned toward it in the dark, half expecting him to whisper something cruel and familiar. When the floorboards creaked, I froze. It was probably just the wind, or maybe the tide had brought something back. I closed my eyes, replaying his last look. Shock, anger, something close to regret. I told myself he was gone. That the sea had swallowed him whole. But when I heard the faint tapping against the window, rhythmic as breathing, a thought slid quietly through my mind. Maybe I wasn't the only one who came back. By the third morning, the search had turned into routine. Men in bright vests combing the sand, dogs sniffing at seaweed, the same questions echoing through the air like gull cries. That's when she arrived, Detective Farah Siddiqui. She was nothing like the others. No uniform, no clipboard. Just calm eyes, sharp and kind at the same time. The kind that notice everything you wish they wouldn't. She introduced herself softly, her voice low enough to make me lean in. "Mrs. Malik, I'd like to ask a few questions." "You don't mind, do you?" Of course I didn't. That's what I said anyway. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where he'd laughed, where the candles had burned too long. She placed her recorder between us, its red light blinking like a heartbeat. "Tell me again," she said. "The moment you realized your husband was missing." I repeated the story exactly as I had before. Every word measured, emotion balanced like glass on a ledge. She nodded, occasionally jotting notes. But her gaze lingered too long on the counter, where his phone should have been. "Strange," she murmured. "The officer's report said your husband left his phone here. Yet it's missing." I froze for a fraction of a second. "Too long. I might have moved it," I said quickly. In all the panic, I can't remember. Her expression didn't change, but something in the air did. She leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing in thought. "And the second key to the villa?" "The owner mentioned there were two." I forced a smile. "He must have taken it with him." She smiled back in slow knowing. "Perhaps." When she stood to leave, she paused at the doorway. "One more thing," she said. "We found a recording on your phone, a call." His voice. The room seemed to tilt. It must have. She lifted her hand gently. "It's all right. Sometimes we keep things we don't mean to. Sometimes we record more than we realize." Her eyes softened, but her tone carried quiet weight. "The tide brings everything back eventually, Mrs. Malik." When the door closed, the silence felt heavier than her presence, and somewhere inside me, the sea began to stir again. It happened 3 days after Detective Siddiqui's visit. The morning was gray. Not stormy, not calm, just colorless, as if the world had been holding its breath too long. A fisherman found it first. He came running up the path, shouting words that barely reached me. I followed the voices to the edge of the shore, where the sea had finally surrendered its secret. The body lay tangled in seaweed and sand, half submerged, the waves nudging it as though reluctant to let go. Everyone stared. No one wanted to move closer. I should have screamed. Instead, I just watched, the sound of the tide louder than my heartbeat. My throat felt dry, my mouth rehearsing the right shape of grief. Detective Siddiqui arrived minutes later, her coat whipping in the wind. She spoke to the officers, her voice steady, controlled. Then her eyes found mine. Soft again, but sharper now, like glass beneath water. "They'll take him for identification," she said quietly. I nodded. Of course, but even before they asked, I knew. The shoes, the ring, the faint scar above his brow. It was him, it had to be him. Still, something inside me whispered, what if it isn't? Hours later, at the small coastal morgue, the truth stood under harsh white light. His face bloated, discolored, barely recognizable, but it was him. I told myself I should feel peace, that closure was supposed to sound like finality. Instead, it echoed like guilt. When they unwrapped his wrist for documentation, I saw it immediately. Bare skin. No bracelet. The same bracelet I had found hidden in his bag. The one that belonged to her. Detective Siddiqui noticed too. She said nothing, but her gaze lingered just long enough to make my stomach twist. Later, back at the villa, I stared at the bracelet on the counter. It glinted under the weak afternoon light. Small, golden, accusatory, I whispered to no one. He's gone now. But the wind outside howled through the shutters, carrying something that sounded almost like laughter. Familiar. Cruel and close, and for the first time, I wasn't sure who the sea had truly given back. I start recording just after midnight. The house is silent except for the waves beyond the glass. The tide is higher tonight, reaching closer to the porch, as if the sea is listening too. I hold my phone in both hands, press record, and wait for courage to arrive. It doesn't, it never does. So I just speak. My name is... I stop. Names feel useless now, like evidence that won't matter. I just want to say what really happened. The red light blinks, steady and patient. It wasn't supposed to go that way, I whisper. I didn't push him. I swear I didn't. He slipped. The rocks were wet, the wind was strong. He grabbed my arm, and I let go. That's all. I let him fall. Silence floods the room. Only the waves answer. I thought I wanted him gone, I continue, voice trembling. But when he disappeared beneath the water, I waited for him to rise again. Told myself he would. I told myself he always does. My reflection in the dark window looks like someone else, pale, hollow-eyed, almost transparent. The sea flickers behind me like a pulse. I found the bracelet before that night, I admit. The photos, the perfume, the lies. I thought the truth would free me. But it only made me dangerous. I became everything he said I was. Paranoid, unstable, cruel. A wave crashes against the shore, loud enough to blur my words. The detective thinks she knows. I say quietly. She looks at me like she's waiting for me to break. Maybe she's right to. Maybe that's what justice looks like. A woman talking to herself at midnight, confessing to ghosts. I pause, then laugh softly, a sound too brittle to be real. The sea did what I couldn't. It took him, then gave him back just to remind me I'll never be rid of him. You think one of us came back, but he's still here. I lower my voice until it's barely more than breath. He's in every sound this house makes, every tide that reaches the shore, every dream where he's standing behind me, dripping salt water, smiling like he never left. The red light stops blinking. The recording ends. Outside, the waves keep moving. Endless, rhythmic, deliberate. I close my eyes and finally understand. Confession doesn't cleanse. It only binds you tighter to the truth you're still afraid to name.